Bill, welcome to the podcast.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
Awesome. It's, we were just chatting about the long and storied history I have with Dataprise, going back to the early 2000s, and Dataprise being my MSP for two companies, for both Winvale and ID Agent over the years. So this is pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'll tell you, we were just talking about how small the industry is and how, not too long, if you're in this industry for any decent amount of time, you're probably 1 or 2 degrees of separation from everyone in it. So it's pretty funny how it all comes back to the middle.
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of jump into it. From what I understand, you're all of maybe a half year or so into it. Is that about right?
Yeah. Just past my, I think I'm 7 months now officially. So
Okay.
in the seat. So it's time flies. It feels like yesterday when we're just getting started. So we're 7 months in already.
Yeah. So take us through what you were doing prior to jumping on board and taking the reins over Dataprise.
Sure. So I've been in the MSP industry really my whole career, going back to Exodus and Savvis and these companies, the darlings of the the .com era.
Yeah.
But most recently, I was at Ensono. So Ensono is a MSP based out of Downers Grove, Illinois, and that was really fun. I was the chief operating officer at Ensono. Really loved the team, what we did there. That was also a private equity held organization. And we grew that from it was really a carve out actually of a company called Axiom. But we grew that from a $188 million business to coming up on $1 billion now when I exited Ensono. And we went from Charles Bank was our private equity partner. Charles Bank and MC Partners actually worked together on that. And they sold it off to KKR about 2 years ago. So really great results. And we really built a great, sustainable, long-term industry-leading business when it comes to MSP. So I'm really proud of what we did there and the team that we put together. So, but career-wise, I wanted to pivot over to being the CEO, and this is another opportunity I think to do something similar, to take a company that has really great opportunity, really great storied history, and figure out how to take that from where they are now to ultimately a much larger organization.
So what are some of the maybe internal questions you ask yourselves? What's the process like going from, being, chief operating officer, running at scale, jumping in and now having the CEO title, and effectively being asked to do something similar to what you did previously from a scale perspective. But what are the questions you ask yourself about taking on this type of a role?
Right. Well, first off, it's certainly a different role, right? When you think about the CEO is going to have a much broader view. In my old role, I definitely had visibility to all the different functions across the company and great opportunity to influence because we had a very small, flat organization. Even in a very large company, it felt very collegiate at Ensono. So I was able to sort of cut my teeth there. But ultimately coming over here and saying, all right, I need to make sure that all these functions are working well together. That was what I wanted to do career-wise. When I think about my career and how I've come up, it's always come back to, can I develop a really great team? And can I get that team to work together in a cohesive way so that we have just a really great outcome, not only financial outcome, but ultimately a great place for people to work and also a place where we can advance people's careers. So that's sort of the tried and true formula for me. I think that's going to pivot or transition well into the CEO role, where if I can get the leaders and then their teams all sort of marching in the same direction, I think we can have a really great result here at Dataprise. Again, not only financial, but a long-term sustained result in this organization.
Yeah, it's I was reading up on not just yourself, but where Dataprise is today, and you guys seem to be really big on a couple of these tenets, right? So being the employer of choice for the associates of choice, being the partner of choice for the clients of choice, and then the acquirer of choice for the acquisition targets of choice. And so it seems like that's a pretty strong ethos or the value propositions internally.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And it's really kind of difficult to take so much, right? When you think about, all right, what's going on in our industry, as a technology managed service provider, every day is an adventure, right? There's a new article every day in the paper about the latest technology or how people are putting it to use. And at Dataprise, we are not just technology agnostic, but we are industry agnostic. So we want to be able to enable technology to all of our clients, no matter what industry that they're in. So when you think about trying to take all that on and be successful in a very competitive environment, that's a lot, right? There's a lot in that. So how do we simplify that down? Well, again, the 3 goals that we came up with here at Dataprise are, number one, it really is all about the associate. It really is, when you think about managed services, we have great tools and great tech, and those are great enablers. But how you provide a great service where clients continue to renew with you every year is you have great associates, and they provide a really great service. So we want to be the employer of choice for the associates of choice. We recently won Computer World's Best Places to Work, and that's really great. But we want to continue to, prove to our associates that this is going to be a great place to work, and we want to invest in them so that they build their careers. So you take that, you tie that with being the partner of choice for our clients, and that means being proactive with clients, trying to understand their business. Even though we're even though we're industry agnostic, we do want to be smart about the client's industry. So if we work with a healthcare client, we need to learn, all right, what is it about healthcare that differentiates this client, and how can we use technology to enable that success? And then repeat that process with retail, repeat that process with state and local, repeat that process with financial. So no matter what industry we're working with, we want to make sure that we're providing great service to that client. What's common there, though, is proactive and industry relevant. If we can do those 2 things, we can be the partner of choice. And then the acquirer of choice. So a big part of our strategy is to continue to acquire inorganically. We've done 9 transactions so far. One just recently, literally just this past week, we announced Hooks Systems out of North Carolina. Really excited about Hooks Systems, that team joining the Dataprise family. So that being us being the acquirer of choice is that we, first of all, we're honest and open in our conversations during the transaction to make sure that the seller is ultimately very comfortable with the results that he or she received. And then from day one, can we provide that great associate experience that I tied to in the beginning, right? For doing that, executing those 3 pillars of our strategy really well, we feel like we're going to have the ability to grow this long-term sustainable business.
I was just thinking, back to, again, maybe 2005, 2006. I think maybe Dataprise had that primary office. I think it was up in Rockville. They might have had a satellite office in Richmond at that point. And that was kind of the extent of the footprint. And then, fast forward X number of years later, you guys are massive and, with a national footprint. What are and let's maybe talk about on the client side, and then I really want to get into the kind of the inorganic and organic, growth strategy. But what are the benefits from a client perspective of having such a large footprint?
Right. So first off, when you think about the people that we support, so we support businesses that are, up through the mid-market size. We don't necessarily go after enterprise clients. They're sort of a larger clients are probably not our sweet spot. When I think about large, I mean 10 billion in revenue. That's probably larger than what we would typically go after. But certainly SMB and mid-market, even higher end mid-market clients, all are perfect for us as far as size of client. And we're trying to find that perfect mix for mid-market clients, so larger clients who may have, we have a client that has 500 offices nationally. They're all over the US. And with a national footprint, we're able to support those 500 offices seamlessly. So they get the same service in every office. It looks the same, feels the same, always, deliver on those services across all 500 offices. So that national footprint supports that, the ability to support that larger mid-market client. But then you look at the other end of the spectrum where we have a client that may be a smaller client. They have one location, they have 150 employees, and we need to be able to provide a great service to that client in that locale. So that client is looking for a local resource to help them, right? Someone who maybe not, right down the street, but certainly within a short drive can get to them. When we interact with them from a sales perspective, it isn't all on video or Zoom. We can actually have in-person meetings, and we build a proper relationship with that type of client. So working across both ends of that spectrum, we have that local intimacy for the smaller clients. And for the larger clients, they still want the intimacy, of course, from a relationship perspective, but to be able to deliver across a national footprint is what they ultimately want. So we've been able to strike that balance, which has, again, been very exciting. The other part with having a national footprint is that you have access to talent all over the US. So if we have a need for a Citrix capability, well, that Citrix person might sit in Texas, and if we need to bring him in on a call or help him resolve a ticket, we bring him in, and we don't need to have necessarily everyone sitting in the East Coast, right? We can have people all over the national footprint. So you have that local sort of intimate touch with clients. We build great relationships, but then you also have a very deep bench of technical talent, depending on what the technical requirements are.
Yeah, and that's massively important. I think that might be one of the interesting things about this new world order, I guess, with kind of this, work from home. The concept of just being spread throughout the country. Not necessarily, work from home, because you guys have folks in nerve centers regionally, but the access to talent where, maybe 5-10 years ago, people were just really thinking local talent, and because you have a massive footprint, and because I think everyone's just kind of adopted those concepts of just finding talent where you can find it. That probably leads to even more rewarding client engagements. And so, you guys could probably teach a masterclass on the balance between organic and inorganic growth. And I know that's a question that a lot of the MSPs listening to this podcast are always struggling with. So, as you look at kind of the roadmap and maybe as you're coming on and helping to plan a vision moving forward, like, do you have a certain percentage of your time that's spent on, how do we grow organically and kind of reinvest in our people and expand versus, how do you effectively scale through acquisition?
Right. So first off, I think you pointed it out right. Both of them are super important. Like, if you have really great organic growth, but you're not able to execute really well inorganically, or vice versa, you have great inorganic, but you're not able to execute organically, that's not going to get you to that long-term, sustainable, healthy company. You really want a good mix of both. Mm-hmm. And if we start with the inorganic first it's about finding the right acquisition. Our industry is tremendous, right? We have one of the best industries to be in. I used to always joke around about, when we think about ups and downs in the market. When the market's up, people are investing in technology. When the market's down and you need to save money, we can help you with that too, right? So there's always an opportunity for us to sell no matter what's happening in the market. So when you think about how massive our market is, growing at 12 to 15% CAGR, depending on who you believe, and that is not going to slow down. That, if anything, it's going to accelerate with things like new AI capabilities and other technologies that our clients are going to need help with. So because the market is so massive, there are plenty of opportunities to acquire. Mm-hmm. So Christian Filomeno, who runs our M&A team, it's not a question of can we acquire, it's which ones, right? Mm-hmm. Which are the target ones that we want to go after. And our plan has always been that we want healthy companies. We're not looking for fixer-uppers. We want companies that are successful today, but need help to scale beyond the 8, 10, 12, 15 million of top line revenue that they have today. That's really our sweet spot. We can do bigger ones, we can do smaller ones, but that's sort of where we focus. So being able to focus on a very particular type of transaction, and then be really good about sort of educating the buyer on what we're bringing to the table, that creates a very healthy relationship and a very healthy transaction. Whenever you acquire a company, it's just only natural that post-acquisition, the company tends to dip a little bit, right? That new division will dip because they're so focused on transacting, they're not necessarily filling the funnel and doing the things that they would normally be doing. We did a lot of work to minimize that dip because we have the ability to not necessarily integrate them, because that takes a little bit of time, but make them feel like part of the team right away and give them access to resources like marketing and sales leadership, as well as HR leadership, to minimize any type of negative impact. So doing that really well, being focused on who we're going to acquire, that has allowed us to do M&A really well. On the organic side, it's a matter of, all right, do we have a really good voice to the industry? Have we been able to, and this is what our Chief Marketing Officer, Mary Beth Hamilton's done really well, is really present the value prop of Dataprise to not only the channel, but then to our our customer base. And that's resonated really well. We've got some really great accolades from third-party industry leaders that say that Dataprise has executed really well on that. And we have reputable clients who say that, yep, they've delivered on their promise. You take those two combinations and you put Keith Moses, who's our SVP of sales, and he gets deals done, right? So we've been able to execute really well on our organic journey. Q4 was actually a record quarter for Dataprise, the largest in history. And then Q1 was fun too, because although not the record, it was second only to Q4, right?
Wow.
And Q1 is typically the place where, I'm not Q1, but any quarter following a record quarter tends to be lower because you sort of cleared the shelves, right? Like you've booked every deal you can book. Well, that wasn't the case here. We were able to keep a funnel really robust and had a really great Q1, which has been exciting. So that combination of Mary Beth Hamilton and Keith Moses, they've really executed tremendously in the sales and marketing world on the organic side.
That's significant, right? Because from a macroeconomic standpoint, I think for a lot of the industry, not just MSP, but even the flow through back to the tech vendors, Q4 and Q1 were kind of challenged, and so the fact that you guys have had record setting quarters and close to record setting quarters back to back is pretty significant.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, and there's certainly a lot of pressure out there, and we're not immune to the pressure when you think about interest rates being really high and debt expenses, and that's like. But we've been able to manage it carefully and not take our eye off the ball on if we can grow organically, that's going to help all these other challenges we have, right? So, so again, Keith and Mary Beth done a really nice job there, and then the inorganic engine's working as well.
If I circle back on a comment you made about post acquisition, you see a lot of acquisitions go south, right, for a myriad of reasons, right? Distraction, culture misalignment, lack of investment, all that stuff. But you mentioned that post acquisition, it sounds like you almost keep the acquisition separate for a while, maybe separate and running autonomously. Am I reading too much into that?
No, I mean, ultimately we integrate them for sure. And there's no doubt that they will benefit greatly from fully integrating into the Dataprise systems. But I would say that there's things that we do day one. So when you think about moving to our underneath the umbrella of our HR environment, right? So our ability to hire new people, our ability to manage the resources that maybe it's a team of 20 or 30 people that we acquire, and depending on the size of the company, they may not have had a dedicated HR person. So now all of a sudden we have people who can help you with learning and development, people who can help you with career path that they just didn't necessarily have in the previous company. I'm sure they had mentors like the owner or the former the founders, those types of things, but not necessarily an HR professional. Mm-hmm. So the other big benefit, of course, is like benefits, healthcare benefits. So these smaller companies every year had to figure out, all right, what am I doing about healthcare benefits? That now is off their plate. They can focus on the business because our HR department day one is hitting the ground running. So HR day one, moving them in underneath our marketing umbrella. So now most companies don't have dedicated marketing resources when we acquire them. They're just not large enough yet. So access to those resources, access to the channel that they didn't previously have has been, tremendously valuable to these acquisitions. Sales leadership as well. These acquisitions typically have between 1 to 4 or 5 salespeople. Those teams are too small to have like sort of dedicated sales leadership. You're now joining a much larger sales organization that has proper sales leadership that can help you, again, build your career, understand how to work in this environment and do it really well. So those things happen day one. So we make those changes day one. People have new leaders day one. That's really great. When it comes to the systems and ultimately how the clients experience the service, we don't change that day one. Because again, we buy healthy companies. So they have really happy clients. So you don't want to, mess up the client experience. So we put a plan in place around integration and how we're going to stair step them across into the Dataprise world. But we always think about it as, how do we make the client experience better? So if today the client experience is good, great, don't disturb it. How do we then make it better? So the best example is they typically don't have access to every capability that Dataprise has. So we acquired one company that had great clients, very happy clients, don't have VDI capabilities. Okay, great. We do, so we can help you with that. So that improves the client experience, and we add that to the list, right, or to the capabilities that that new acquisition has. So those are just a few things that we do, but ultimately we move them into the Dataprise solution. But it's a well-mapped, stair step across, not, day one we cut the systems across and the clients see a huge change now that they're at Dataprise. They should only see the positive upswell versus the, negative swap over.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you took the time to detail that process, because you do hear that kind of the kiss of death post acquisition, or maybe the statistic you hear the most is about a 30% dip in customer retention from the acquired company. So the company that you're acquiring, and that's, you got to be on your toes, right? You have that, very smooth transition. You have to, and make sure there's a cultural alignment. You're not disrupting, to your point, the apple cart, and you're doing things that are additive versus, hey, we do things this way. I know you guys did things that way in the past because, because you've been acquired, we have to do it our way. And those are oftentimes those little hurdles that just trip these things up and oftentimes deflate even the owner. If the owner's sticking on for a year or two or what have you, I mean, that can be pretty disruptive to the overall acquisition. So it sounds like you guys have a pretty well-defined strategy and onboarding process.
Yeah, and I think too, you find what's different about them, what's better about them. Just because they're smaller doesn't mean they don't have things that are better than Dataprise, right? So if you can find that sort of the sort of hidden nuggets there of the positive, or what's all positive, but like the differentiated item inside of that acquisition, and then you put that center stage and say, all right, that's now our new standard for Dataprise as a much larger company. That creates a lot of goodwill as well. So, and it makes a healthier company overall. So we're always on the lookout for that, and we haven't been disappointed. Every acquisition, there's been items, even though they're a much smaller company, that's better than what we have today, and we integrate that into our solution.
That's awesome. So you've run MSPs at scale. You've got a pretty well defined target, acquisition persona. What are some tips or things that MSPs that are kind of going down this path or considering going down the path of maybe putting their business up for sale or being acquired? What are some of the things that you'd recommend they do prior to going down that path? You see a lot of folks kind of rushing into it because M&A obviously is a very hot topic. Private equity is they can't get enough of our industry right now. But what's some guidance that you provide to potential companies that you'd acquire?
All right. So first off, I think it is very distracting to go through a sale process. I mean, of course, right? There's so much work to do. There's so much so many things that you need to think about. And when you worry, I mean, people have built businesses over 10, 15, 20 years, and they're now, some even longer, and they're now thinking, okay, I'm going to transact because I need to bring in outside dollars. I don't necessarily have the money to go or the investments to go to the next level. A lot of reasons why they might end up selling. But when you think about what makes it for a good transaction, again, healthy business, right?
Mhm.
Focus on your business. Like I know that there's likely people thinking, oh, well, how do I best maximize my payout, or how do I best maximize my negotiation with the acquirer? Focus on your business. If you have a really healthy business, you're going to have a ton of people who are interested in and willing to pay a premium for that business. So uh, make sure that you're growing, right? So if you have the ability to continue to see that growth rate year over year, marching up, that is going to create a lot of desire in the industry to say, yeah, that's a top acquisition. The other part is, how do you manage your clients? If you can figure out how to create long-term clients, so clients who've been with you forever, keep those clients happy, keep renewing those clients. You can show that long-term track record of not just growth, but also retention of your existing clients. You're going to create a premium on your business, right? And that's really what it's all about. The transaction itself, you get good advisors, and that's work with people who've done it before. Great, that's always helpful. But the real sort of nucleus of it is, I have a healthy business, and be really confident in the fact that you have a healthy business, and demand that you get what you want out of the transaction.
Yeah, it's again, you guys have bucked the trend, I guess. Q4 and Q1, and this industry in general has bucked a lot of the macroeconomic trends. That's why there's such a a drive to roll up, and that's why private equity is coming into this space. But you're absolutely right. It can be ridiculously time consuming, ridiculously distracting. And I couldn't agree with you more. That the companies that have those principles in place, they're working on day in and day out customer execution and profitability. Those are the ones that they end up getting a couple extra turns maybe on the multiple. And so I think that's very solid practical advice. So we have our M&A roadshow coming up. I think we're calling it M&A Growth Show next week in Chicago. We'll do a series of these throughout the year in a couple major metropolitan markets. I guess, what's your outlook on just M&A in general for the next couple of years, right? You got this challenged market with interest rates being, what they are, being elevated. You've got economic uncertainty, wars, all this crazy macroeconomic stuff. But, what's kind of the general thought of M&A and how you guys are approaching it for the next couple of years?
All right. So first off, it really is interesting how we got here, right? And the way that private equity is working, and even before any of the significant interest rate increases and that sort of thing, there's just a tremendous amount of dry powder. Like, there are so many private equity firms who've raised money who want to put that money to work. And if you just think of the simple economics of it, their businesses thrive on transaction. Now, they want healthy companies. They want to make sure that every transaction is a good one. But ultimately, without transacting, they're not going to grow, right? They're not going to be healthy, and they're not going to hit their targets. So the desire to do deals continues to be really strong. The question is, can we get over the sort of hurdle rates of, all right, is this a deal that I can do at, whether it's higher interest rates or they have other challenges in those businesses? We've seen, still a very strong desire to transact in this industry, right? Mm-hmm. Even with all the headwinds of, high interest rates and all that, not so fun stuff, we continue to see tons and tons and tons of interest in acquiring companies in this space. So I think, as you mentioned earlier, I think private equity is very excited to continue to put money into this business. It really checks a lot of the boxes they're looking for. It's recurring. It's a highly fragmented market, and the opportunity to bring these companies together. It's a space that will continue to grow in the foreseeable future. That's one of the pieces of being in private equity, is that sure, you'll go out and you'll create a larger company by acquiring companies and through organic growth, but you ultimately need someone to buy the company afterwards. And for someone to buy the next company, they have to feel like there's more room to grow. There's more meat on the bone for them to then roll up more and then, ultimately sell in the future or go public or sell to an enterprise. Or there's a whole different, the whole dynamic there about, is the next buyer going to have meat on the bone? And in this industry, the answer is just yes, right? We just know that with everything going on in technology today, you can't even fathom the idea that like it's going to stop. Like it's no way is it going to stop. And for those people out there that are worried about, well, AI is going to take over my job. Like, no, it's not. I mean, what's going to happen is every accountant in the world was freaking out when Excel came out, right? Like we need accountants more than ever.
Right.
And I think the same thing's going to happen with any technology innovation, and AI is no different, where businesses know that AI is powerful. Businesses know they want to, take that tool in and figure out how to best utilize it for their particular industry. And the question is how? And the answer is, well, your MSP is going to help you, right? So now maybe we have less to do with, patching a server because we've now automated that and AI can do that sort of thing. But we still need to guide our clients through the next technology innovation, and which again is AI now, and it's going to be something else in the future, right? You can take your pick on what you think it's going to be, but there's still a very bright future for our company and companies like ours out there. So I think M&A will continue to be strong in this industry, and I just think it's a matter of if you build a healthy business, you're going to be the one that people are focused on.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. It's funny, going back and you look at how this industry has matured. If you went back 7-8 years ago, you might have had a handful of groups, raising specifically for MSP roll-ups, or even investing in the vendors, the technologies that support this industry. And then you had Arnie and his team over ConnectWise, Transact. You had the TPGs and the Insights with the Kaseas, and then you guys PE backed. You had some kind of watershed moments that really solidified this industry, and I think where this market's going, because it's built on recurring revenue models, and if you're doing your job right, you've got sound principles. You should be able to ride the wave no matter what new technology comes into the market. So I think I tend to agree with you that this is going to be a pretty frothy marketplace for at least the next decade. I mean, I don't know if we can even think beyond that, but I think you guys are positioned well. I think we're all positioned well.
Yeah, totally agree.
Cool. Well, look, I know you're a busy guy. We've got a lot of M&A stuff coming up here in the next week or two. I want to thank you for joining me, and we'll have links out there to Dataprise, the site, and links out to you on the socials. That way everyone can find you, and look forward to seeing you out here at our event coming up next Tuesday.
Excellent. Yeah, Kevin, I'm looking forward to it as well, and I really enjoyed the time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill.